Okay, so I'm gonna make this video trying to explain how I was able to run a 10-second pass in a stock turbo M55. I know a lot of you guys are curious and wondering how I did it. I'll do my best to explain it. So we'll start off with what the car weighs. Okay, so the car weighed 3,300 pounds without me, and then I did upgrade the drive shaft. I upgraded the drive shaft because I know I broke the one on the 340 at the track, so I did not want to pay another tow bill. I'd rather just buy a drive shaft, put it on, make some passes, and drive the car home. So it's just strictly for that reason. It was a little bit heavier. I don't know how much, but before the drive shaft, the car weighed 3,300 pounds with half a tank and no driver. I myself weigh about 200, 220, so that's why I put 3525 on there. That's the weight I'm going to use for the car. It had slightly less than half a tank. I'm putting a little bit of wiggle room in this. So let's say 3525. On the low side, I believe the car is probably making about 420. On the high side, I believe it's probably making 430. And so the math that I'm using here is I know what it weighs, and I'm speculating what it would make horsepower wise. I will take it to the dyno, and I will find out. But I believe these numbers that I'm putting on here are pretty close. So so that if it weighed 3525 and it made 420 to the wheels, that means every horsepower was pulling 8.39 pounds. Now, let's say it dynoed a little bit more, maybe on the high side, 430. That means for every horsepower, it's pulling 8.2 pounds, which is relatively low. I'll bring up some examples here shortly, and you'll see why I say it's relatively low. Yes, the car is on an OTS map. It's not on a custom tune, and that's why I think it makes those numbers. But it is on an OTS map that is dedicated for a upgraded high pressure fuel pump. Uh, I've seen a few dynos of cars with that tune, and they roughly make about what I'm putting on there. That's why I'm using that as an estimate. Okay, so now that we got that out of the way, which I think is probably the biggest difference, is the weight. We'll talk about two more things that I know make a difference. I've tested it myself, so I've seen the difference that it makes. Many people, I guess, maybe overlook it and don't pay attention to it. So the DA that I ran the car in was almost negative 1,900 feet. I put the slip right there, or I'm always transparent. You can see it. Don't hide anything. Um, Another factor, I guess you can consider a small factor that people don't realize either. There was a tailwind um, that day as well. If you go look at the picture that's on the, I don't know if it shows it, but I know I had a picture showing somewhere the flag and showing the wind direction, and it was a tailwind. So basically, it was pushing the car forward. It wasn't that much, but it does make a difference. Especially if you're running and trying to get a time, opposed to you having a headwind. The last time I went to the track, I did have a headwind. The DA was not as good. It was about sea level, and I did have a headwind. And it shows on the drag, even on the time slip, the car did not trap the same. The car was trapping about 122, 123 on the slips, and about 123, 124 on the draggy. And that's with the headwind and being at sea level. So now with the tailwind and being almost negative 1,900 feet, it did not trap lower than 125. It was consistent 125 on the draggy, and on the slips it was 124. So there you go. That's extra, you know, advantage that I had. It's just little things that add up, and people always miss it and don't pay attention, don't ask questions. So, that's why I try to explain it to everybody. That's why I'm here trying to explain it, and so give you an idea of how all these factors play together and make a huge difference. You add in this little factor here, plus this other little factor here, plus this other little factor here, and another little factor. Next thing all those little factors, that's 2/10 right there, 3/10 right there of a difference. All right, so now that we know, these other little factors and little differences that I've posted on here, or actually put in the video, Let's move on to some examples. And the first example is going to be basically two all-wheel drive or two X-Drive 335i's. So there you go, the 120-pound penalty for it being X-Drive. Then the 50 pounds for the exhaust, 50 pounds for not having skinnies, being that they are X-Drive. It would be pointless to run skinnies if you're X-Drive. So just choosing an X-Drive car, on the low side, you're looking at least a 150-pound penalty. On the high side, you're looking at about a 200-pound penalty. Like I said, I don't have an exact number on that, but I put something, in the middle, about 170 pounds. I know the car on the left had an exhaust. I'm not sure about the car on the right. I know both of them did not have a lithium battery. I know the car on the left had the seats out. I'm not sure about the car on the right. So the math I used here was that 3,800 pounds was the penalties that I added up here. Remember, mine was 3,525 plus the exhaust and the skinnies. That's 100 pounds. That's 3,625 plus 55. You're at 3,625 and 55. That's 3,680 plus the 120, and for the X-Drive, you're at 3,800 pounds. So let's say I know both of these cars have a custom E50 tune. I believe they maybe use different tuners, but let's just say they're both pushing the same horsepower. So at 3,800 pounds and 445 horsepower, that's 8.54 pounds per horsepower. Now, the car on the right, let's just say it did have the seats in. That's all the passenger seats, the front passenger and the whole rear bench and the rear seat bottom and the two side forms is about 130 pounds. So that total is now 3,930. So using the same 445 horsepower, that's being kind of generous, I would think. I don't, let's just say that's about what a custom tuned, E50 car or N55 EWG car would make. You're looking at 8.83, pounds for every horsepower. That's quite a bit more than what I was pushing. So that's why, add that in. Look at the DA. They are both at roughly about 200 feet above sea level. So that's a little over 2,000 feet difference than when I ran my number. So we'll keep going with this. We'll bring in one more example. The next example is going to be a 2 Series. That's all-wheel drive as well. Common theme. All these cars are all-wheel drive. Like I said, I'm like the only one that went rear-wheel drive. And so here's the all-wheel drive 2 Series. I put the same 120-pound penalty for it being X-Drive. I subtracted 100 pounds for it being a 2 Series, because roughly a 2 Series X-Drive car and a rear-wheel drive 3 or 4 Series weigh roughly the same. Not sure which one's heavier or which one's lighter, but I know it's a minimal difference. Being this course, this one's X-Drive, no skinnies. Added a 50-pound penalty there. I know he didn't have a lithium battery. That's another 55. I believe this car was full weight with exhaust and seats as well. So I gave 2 examples with that, and I used the same 445 horsepower because this car as well was on an E50 custom tune. I think he used a different tuner, but we'll just just try to be equal. I don't think there's much difference, to be honest with you, between these tuners and this stock turbo, because you're not limited by the tuner, you're limited by the turbo itself, and they're both using E50. So right there, the 3650 divided by the 445 equals 8.2. Granted, like I said, I don't think he had his seats out or his exhaust dumped. So that would be, not a real answer. I think what we're more looking for is going to be, since I put there with the seats, 3830, and he did have an exhaust. That's 130 plus the 50. That's 180 difference. That's why we get the 3830. And you divide that by the 445, you get 8.61. And then once again, if you look at his DA, it's just not as good either. So it's not always about the horsepower. That's why I'm trying to explain to people. And these cars are X-Drive, and they really are not cutting that much a better 60 foot than my car. Because I put it on the track with prep. To take advantage of that. On the street, yes, these cars will probably more likely be quicker than mine, but that's not what we're comparing. We're comparing the best pass, and I'm gonna use everything in my power to or in my advantage to make the best pass possible, and that's why I ran this car on the track, with prep, put drag radials on it, ran it in drag mode with XHP, used the and then I put the drive shaft in it. I didn't care if it was gonna break. I went all in. I tried to launch it as hard as possible. I know this draggy showed a 1.71, but on the slip itself, I think it's like a 1.66 or 1.67. So, the car did the best 60 foot cut. I think it's a 161. So, like I said, these all-wheel drive cars are not cutting much better 60 foot than me. I think we're pretty equal. You'll see some of these are like in the 1.6s, and some of these are in the 1.8s. So, like I definitely fall within range of what they're cutting. But they have the penalty of having all that extra weight on their car, and I don't. All right. With that being said, I went over this video. It's a lot longer than what I thought it would be. I guess it took a lot longer to try to explain everything, try to break everything down as best as I could. I know I probably bored a lot of you guys, but it's I made this for the people that are interested in trying to figure it out and how to go about it. I guess one other thing I didn't bring up was shift points. I think that's very important too. But I think I'll make another video on that one. Hopefully that one will be a lot shorter. But my whole goal was here is just try to make you understand or have an idea of how I went about it and why I went about it that way. Um, I'm not saying that my setup is the best or that nobody will ever beat the times that I put up. I actually know that there's wiggle room on both cars and both engines, or both setups, whatever you want to call it. I actually hope that one day somebody can, best these times, and I just, want to see the platform, move, continue to move forward, and progress. I don't want, so don't think that these times are not impossible or they are impossible to beat. Coming from the person who made these, did these times, I'm telling you, I know it could be. There's room for improvement, 100%. So for those that stuck around, appreciate you for listening to this lecture that I put on. But like I said, thanks again, and we'll see you on the next video.